welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mary, and today's video is going to be the long-awaited return to my TBR game to play Picks my TBR for the month of October. So I have not filmed a TBR game since July, I believe, and I have not really followed a TBR since March or April, which is why I stopped filming my TBR game because I was so busy with everything. But I think things are sort of slowing down, or at least I'm sort of back into a normal routine where I have some time to read, or I can make time to read, and my stress levels are slightly lower than they were over the summer. So I'm back to play Sorry again. I've missed this game. I don't know if you guys have missed it, but I definitely have missed it. And I did just want to touch on the fact that I usually do a challenge every October called 31 Books in 31 Days. I am not doing that challenge this year, but I am tentatively still aiming to read as many books as I possibly can in October, just because it's always a fun challenge to do. I have never successfully completed a 31 Books in 31 Days, but it is fun for me to participate in. Normally, for that reason, I don't have a TBR. I just show you some books that I might read because I have books that I own. The main reason I try to do 31 Books in 31 Days is to read some books that I own, which, as you'll see with this TBR, I am once again going to the library for quite a few of my books, even though I do own quite a few books, as you can see behind me. But without further ado, let's just figure out how many books I'm reading and what the first book is going to be. Okay, so we're starting over here where we left off in the Bookathon vlogs when I had to use my TBR game. So that's where we're starting. Let's see how many books we're going to read this month. Sorry, so whatever it is, we'll add one to it. 12. Perfect. Okay. And let's see. Move forward 7 or split the move between 2 pawns. So what I'm going to do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go home with that one. And then we'll move to yellow and do the next 2. Okay. So then 1, 2, a debut novel. So I got, as you saw, a Sorry right off the bat, which means that I just added a book to my total stack. I forgot to mention, if you don't know the rules of this game, I think I explained it at one point earlier this year, so I will try to link that video for you so you can read it and figure out the rules. It's pretty self-explanatory, but in case you want to know the rules, I will link that down below for you. The first book, or the first prompt that I landed on for this round was to read a debut novel. And for this, I'm going to be reading After the Fire, A Still Small Voice by Evie Wyld, which is set in the Australian outback, which is one of my favorite settings. I've talked about that sort of recently. I think this is more of a literary fiction book, so I'm interested to see how that will play with my enjoyment of it. And it follows, I believe, a father and a son in 2 different timelines. And I think we're just learning through their eyes how they cope with things like PTSD and their lives. I'm very interested in a multi-generational family story, and I'm really excited to give this one a shot. This is Evie Wyld's first book, and I believe it won some prizes. So I think it was a generally, how do I say this? I think reviewers tend to not like it as much, like regular readers, but people who read things for literary prizes really enjoyed this book. I definitely fall more on the general reader side of things, but it does sound like something that interests me, and I am very excited to read this one. Move forward 12. A middle grade. The next prompt that I landed on was to read a middle grade. And for this, I'm really excited. I'm going to be reading The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend, which is a middle grade, obviously. It's the first in a series, the Nevermore series. And I believe it's one of Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin's favorite series. And I know it's one of Kelly from Velvet Library's favorite series. So I'm very excited to give this one a shot. I believe it follows a young girl, Morgan Crow, who is cursed or believed to be cursed by her village. And so I think she's going to be sacrificed, and then she gets saved by this mysterious man who takes her to the world of Nevermore, and I think something ensues along the lines of her having magical abilities. So I do really like that as a trope in middle grade, particularly in YA, so I'm very excited to read this one as well. Move forward 11. Sci-fi. The next prompt that I landed on was to read a science fiction book. And for this, I'm picking up No Man by Nick Harkaway again. I tried to read this back in February, I think, and unfortunately, I did not get very far along with this at all. But that was, again, at a time when I just was not in the headspace for it. This is quite a chunky book, and this is a dystopian science fiction, which I believe follows like a futuristic world where the police can go inside of your mind when they interrogate you, and someone from the police's like internal review is looking over this case because a woman actually died during an interrogation, which has never happened before. So that's like the premise of the book, and that's all I really remember from the setup, but I'm very excited to read this one, and I hope I enjoy it. It sounds right up my alley, but before I couldn't get into it, so I'm hoping that that was just a like timing fluke and not a I don't like the book fluke. Move forward 1, thriller. The next prompt that I landed on was to read a thriller, and for this I'm going to be reading The Need by Helen Phillips. And to be completely honest with you, I don't know what this book is about, but I'm pretty sure it is a sci-fi thriller. So this sounds like it's going to be sort of a home invasion with a sci-fi twist. Very excited to read this one. Apparently I'm reading a lot of sci-fi even when I don't get sci-fi as a prompt this month, but I think it'll be a lot of fun nonetheless. Move forward 10 or backwards 1. Let's see what 10 is. I'm gonna do that, and that is a second chance book. The next prompt that I landed on was to read a second chance book, and for this can be either a second chance romance or a book that I'm trying for the second time, like maybe a book that I soft DNF'd before, hint hint, or even a book that I didn't like another book by this author, but I'm trying the author again, something like that. And I'm going to be reading Still Lives by Maria Hummel, which I recently purchased because I found at Halfers Books. So this is a thriller about a woman who's in the art world, and she goes missing when she's supposed to show up for her gala. And I believe this plays a lot with like gender roles and I think it has to do with the fascination of like female crime victims. So I'm really excited to read this one. I did have this on a TBR, at least one TBR, if not 2 TBRs previously, and my hold from the library lapsed. So I bought it, so now I have no excuse, but I have to read it. Move forward 10 or backwards 1 again. So backwards 1 would be short stories. And forwards 10 is romance. I'm gonna do the romance. The next prompt that I landed on, I was between short stories and romance, and I ended up going with romance. I'm kind of regretting that decision now, but I am gonna read A Quarter Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas, which I believe is really a winter book, so I'm curious to see if like it being not winter affects my my read of this. But this is a novella set after the events of ACOWAR in the ACOTAR series, A Court of Thorns and Roses series. And to be honest, I don't love that series, but I did receive this book as a gift, so I am going to read it and see how I feel about it. It is relatively short, and I've heard it's kind of just like fan stuff, so it's like Reese and Feyre going Christmas shopping, I think is essentially what it is. I don't love them, so I'm really curious to see if I'm even gonna like this book at all, but we will see, and I will report back. Move forward 5. A friend recommendation. Okay, the next prompt that I landed on was to read a book that a friend recommended me, and my friend Annie Kate from law school actually recommended me this book. It's Home by Toni Morrison, and again, I recently purchased it, so we're doing good with the recent book haul, kind of. And this says on the back, I'm just going to read it to you. It says, when Frank Bunny joined the army to escape his too small world, he left behind his cherished and fragile little sister C. After the war, his shattered life has no purpose until he hears that C is in danger. Frank is a modern Odysseus returning to a 1950s America mined with lethal pitfalls for an unwary black man. As he journeys to his native Georgia in search of C, it becomes clear that their troubles began well before their wartime separation. Together, they return to their rural hometown of Lotus, where buried secrets are unearthed, and where Frank learns at last what it means to be a man, what it takes to heal, and above all, what it means to come home. So, I mentioned this in a book haul, again, recently. I'll link it. It's in a vlog that happened kind of recently, so actually, that vlog might not be out yet, so it's in an upcoming vlog. Spoiler alert for a book haul, I guess. What was I gonna say? Oh, I mentioned in that book haul that I have really loved everything that I've read by Toni Morrison, so I'm excited to keep it going and read some more of her stuff. I do want to read her entire backlist eventually. Move forward 2. A book with queer rep. The next prompt that I landed on was to read a book with queer rep, and for this I'm going to be reading Jack of Hearts and Other Parts, which I think is a YA queer contemporary. I don't know much about it. I've heard one person talk about it, and I put it on my TBR because for whatever reason it sounded good at the time, and now it's just been sitting on my TBR, so I'm gonna give it a skim, and if I don't end up liking it, I'm gonna actually read it, okay? I might DNF it, is what I'm saying, but I just want it off my TBR if I'm not gonna read it. I really need to go through and clear out my TBR for things that I don't care about reading anymore, so. Move forward 5. Ooh, a prize book. The next prompt that I landed on was to read a book that has either been nominated for or won a prize. I chose a prize winner, and that is The Trauma Cleaner by Sarah Krasnostein. And this is a nonfiction book. I don't know, let me read you the thing. So this is a, not memoir because it's not written by the person that it's about, but it's a nonfiction book about the experience of one trans woman and her life. And I'm really, really curious to see how it goes. I've heard really good things about this, and this won the Victorian Premier's Literary Award for Literature in 2018 and for nonfiction, is what it says. So it is a nonfiction book, so I don't know how it won for literature, but I'm really, really excited to read it nonetheless. And this is one of those books that I went through a list in 2018 of all the best books that were coming out that year and wrote them all down, and I'm still working my way through them. So this is one of those. 4 years later, here I am. Move forward 8. I can't move. Move forward 2. And that is historical. The next prompt that I landed on was to read a historical book, and for this I'm going to be reading A Well-Behaved Woman, a novel of the Vanderbilts by Therese Ann Fowler. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know that much about the Vanderbilts, but I know that they were a very wealthy, influential family, but this sounds like the Vanderbilts were really close to social ruin, and this woman, Alva, came in and married them, and it sort of saved her social class and also elevated theirs, and I'm really, really excited to see what this is about. This is one of those books that could go 50-50 for me, depending on how it's handled, if I will like it or not. That's how historical fictions tend to go for me. They're very hit or miss, but I'm really excited to give this one a shot. So I am looking for a 1 or I guess a 7. Move forward 11, 5, 11, 11, 1. Okay, and now we'll move to green. Move forward 10 or backwards 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sci-fi. The next prompt that I landed on was to read another sci-fi, and for this I'm going to be reading Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert. This again is the second time that this has been on a TBR, and I did not read it last time, but this is the sequel to Dune, which I read last year and really disliked. But I've heard really, really good things about that series, and I do want to give it a fair shot, so I thought I would read the sequel, and if I hate it, then I hate it, and I won't read any other books from the Dune universe. But I am very excited to continue in this one. It's set on a planet where spice basically controls the world, and in the first book we follow this guy who there's all sorts of religious intrigue and prophecy type stuff at play, and obviously there's a movie with what's his name, Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya. So I did see the movie, and I will say, having read the book did not help me understand what was happening whatsoever. And Oscar Isaac, I think, is also in the film. But it's really interesting, and it's a fandom that I would like to be a part of because it seems cool, but I couldn't get into the first one, so I'm hoping that I can get into the second one, and then I can reread the first one, and then I can be a fan of this whole series. So we'll see how that goes for me. Move backwards 4. Which puts us at sci-fi again. And then I landed on sci-fi yet again. So for this one, I'm going to be reading The Humans by Matt Haig, which is a sort of, I believe, humorous sci-fi about an alien who comes to Earth and is examining humans for the first time and talking about all the interesting things that humans do. I'm really excited to read this one. I know Books with Emily Fox is how I heard of this book, and I have read a Matt Haig before. I read The Midnight Library last year, and it ended up being one of my favorite books of the year, if not my favorite book of the year. I can't remember what I ended up giving the top spot to, but I do really like his writing style. I really like his point of view on things, or at least I liked that book. And this one sounds really funny and like it would be right in my alley. So it also sounds a little different from some of the other sci-fis that I've got on this list. I do have a lot of sci-fi in this TBR. There's even one still coming. Spoiler alert. But I feel like I've got a good mix of different sci-fis. And hopefully the last prompt, move forward 3. A book that has a movie adaptation. The last book is a book with a movie adaptation was my my prompt, and I chose Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, which is a book that Sunbeams Jess, I think is her YouTube name. I'll try to link her down below. She talked about a couple of years ago, really loved. I'm really excited to read it. I've seen the movie. It's basically about these female scientists who all go into a like designated dead zone, and there's something weird happening in the zone. It's a horror sci-fi, again, kind of like The Need by Helen Phillips, and it's got like a what is the word? Like earthy horror to it, earthy body horror, which I'm really excited to read. I know this is the first book in a series, the Far Reach series, the Something Reach series. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but I'm very, very excited to read this book and to pick it up and see how I feel about it. But that is book 13. So those are the 13 books that I am planning on reading in the month of October. At least. I would like to get through, again, I would like to read 31 books, but I don't know if that will actually happen or not. I tried to put some shorter books in here, some novellas, as well as, of course, a few quite chunky books. So we'll see. As always, let me know in the comments down below if you have read any of these books and how you felt about them. Also, let me know what you are planning on reading in the month of October. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. You can also subscribe to my channel. I do try to post 2 videos every single week, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!